All right. Hey, everybody. Just bear with me 1 second. I want to make sure that we are broadcasting live correctly on the website. Um, Perfect. It looks like we are. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm really excited to have you guys all here. For those who don't know me, I'm Steph Cook, and I am a career and lifestyle coach. And I work with driven women who want to make a difference in the world, but who are feeling like they're not working at their full capacity. And if you're here and you're watching this, you probably are that woman where you want to make a difference in the world, but maybe you know your job isn't working or you're just feeling stuck. And I think we can all relate to the fact that when we're in that position, our whole life just feels stuck. We're not taking care of our bodies the way that we should be. Our relationships are not where we want them to be. We're just not living the life that we want. I believe that success is the full package. So it is having a career that you love, but it is also, having really fulfilling relationships and being able to spend quality time with friends and family and taking care of your body, eating nutritious foods, and not loading up on pizza and coffee all the time, which I'll share a little bit more about my story with that when we get there. But it's the full package. It's having a job that you love in the midst of all these other things. And I think that is possible for all of us. I really truly do. And I believe that because it's possible for me. And if it's possible for me, it's really possible for anyone. But that's not to say that there's not work involved in getting to that place. And I think that sometimes we get lost on the way. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that today. So I'm really excited. I've got some great information to share. And before we get started, I actually pulled, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Danielle Laporte, but she's amazing. And I have her Truth Bomb cards, and I pulled this one. It's probably going to be backwards, I bet. So I'm just going to read it to you. It's like really telling for the conversation we're going to have today. It says, let go of the promises that you've outgrown. And so applicable for our conversation. Great card for me to pick before our call today, really just to set the tone, right? So let me share a little bit of my background with you because I want to set the stage. I am trained as an engineer, environmental engineer, and I worked in engineering for the first 6 years of my career out of college. I worked for a consulting firm and honestly was pretty successful. I was the youngest person in my office to be managing a $1 million client portfolio. I had done that by the time I was 26, so I'd been there just a few years. And, I liked work well enough, but I was working myself to the bone to be successful, and I got burnt out. And I really started to question, is this right? Like, should I be feeling like this? Like, this doesn't seem like what success should feel like. And this doesn't feel like what a rewarding job should feel like. And why am I working so hard? And it just is falling flat of my expectations. I was doing all of the things that I was told to do. So, I got a good college degree. Then I got my master's degree while I was working. I got my professional engineering license. And, I just kept going for that next thing, that next thing, that next thing. Like we're all kind of taught to do, thinking once I get to that next level, I'll be happy or I'll have a certain level of success. And then when I got there, I wasn't happy. So I started reaching for that next level, and it's like never ending. Right. And, for me, I just ended up burnt out. My marriage was failing. Like my husband was considering leaving me. I'd put on weight because I literally was just drinking soy lattes and eating pizza all the time because I didn't have time to cook. So takeout was like my jam. And it really took a toll on my entire life, having this job that I quote unquote loved and quote unquote was successful. And it just never felt right. And so I went on this probably 5-year journey to try and find what felt right for me. And I jumped from job to job to job. You know, if you saw some of the things that I was sharing about this webinar, I shared that I had 5 different careers or 5 different jobs in 5 different industries within the span of just 3 years. So I was literally like, is this going to work? Let me try it. No, that doesn't feel right. Let me try something else. And I was just hopping around, you know, no rhyme or reason, just kind of like hoping that by some like magic, something would appear for me and something would feel right. You know, I was looking for that thing that just like clicked with me. And it didn't when I was doing all that hopping, right? And it took me getting to this one point where I woke up one day and I realized, hold on a second, like, this isn't it. It isn't the job, right? And this is what one of the things I was trying to share with you guys in kind of the precursors to this webinar is it's not the job that's keeping us unhappy or unsatisfied. The real reason that we're all miserable and unsatisfied at work is that we're living someone else's vision of our life. I absolutely was. And, you know, you might be sitting there thinking like, I'm not sure how I feel about that statement, but just bear with me for a second, okay? Others of you might be like, holy shit, like totally, that's totally how I feel. And, you know, some of us have to dig a little bit deeper. For me, I had to dig a little bit deeper when I came to this realization. So I was working with a coach at the time. I was working with some professional mentors, and I started to kind of peel back the layers of like, how did I get to this place? And, you know, what led me down this path? And there were 2 very distinct moments from many, many years before that led me to this role. The first was when I was working, I was in high school. Sorry, I wasn't working. Well, I was, but I was in high school, and I was always a good student in high school. You know, despite every attempt for myself to do poorly, being a bit of a party animal, I did really well, and I graduated in the top 2% of my high school class. So, you know, when you're in that position, you can kind of write your own ticket in a lot of ways to like go to a great school, be in whatever programs you want, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So I really felt at that time like I had the world at my fingertips. And I remember sitting in my guidance counselor's office, and I'm 17, 18 years old, and he looks at me and he says, so what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And it was like deer in headlights moment, like, wait, what? Like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? I'm 17 years old and I have to decide that right here on the spot. And I felt a ton of pressure. I didn't know. And he kind of said, well, you know, you're really good at math and science, and girls who are really good at math and science can get great scholarships to go to engineering school. So I think you should do that. So that's what I did. You know, the choice wasn't mine. I was like, okay, I'm good at math and science. I can probably do this. And so that's what I did. Right. So that's the first point where where the choice that was being made for me wasn't really mine. And I kind of just went with the flow. The second time was my sophomore year of college. So at this point, I'd been at engineering school for 2 years, and I was on spring break, and all of my friends were gone. They were either, you know, off in exotic locations or had just gone home. And even my roommate was gone. I was in my apartment for the week by myself. And I was just feeling like, I had a lot of time to think, right? And I was feeling like this just isn't right. Like something feels wrong about this. And I can remember sitting on my bedroom floor and just bawling and thinking like, I'm supposed to be somewhere else. I feel like I'm supposed to be somewhere else. And I called my mom, and this is not a dig on her at all. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the people that have made these choices for us in a second. But, you know, I called my mom and I said, I was so upset. And I said, you know, I really want to take time off and figure out what I need to do. I feel like I'm wasting energy. I feel like I'm wasting time. I feel like I'm wasting money. And I don't feel like this is right for me. And my mom, kind of being who she is and having her own story, said to me, you know, Stephanie, you just have to finish your degree. You can't leave. Finish your degree. Once you're done, you can do whatever you want. You know, you don't have to work as an engineer. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. We all, I think, know that when you go to college and get a degree, you have loans to pay back. So it's not just like you can just, you know, do whatever you want when you graduate. Like, you have to get a job. And so that decision led me onto this path that I've been on, and this path that just felt wrong. And it felt wrong because it was never my choice, right? So I want you to take a second and really think, and you might have to do it after this call if it's something that doesn't immediately come to mind for you, but think about, you know, what has led you to the place where you are at now. And were the choices that led you here really your choices, or were they, you know, choices that other people made for you? All right. So that is kind of the crux of what leads us to be miserable at our jobs. But that's not all that I want to talk about today. So I want to talk about, really, the more important part is, okay, like, we realize there's something wrong. What the heck do we do about it? Because we all feel stuck and immobilized, unless you're like me and you like job hop like a crazy person. But a lot of people, you know, feel like, I don't want to leave until I know the next step for sure. Or, you know, I have financial commitments, I have a family, you know, whatever those things might be for you. We need to get to a point where you are able to transition to a better place, right? So let's talk about how you get there. And so I have this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that came across my email actually yesterday when I was pulling together my final notes for our webinar today. And so I want to read it to you because I think it's really applicable. It's, in the long run, we shape our lives and we shape ourselves. The process never ends until we die. And the choices we make are ultimately our own responsibility. I think that's really telling. And, you know, I just got finished saying that other people have made these choices for us, right? But it's time to let go of that and to step into a place where you are taking ownership of the process and you are taking ownership of the choices. Okay, now you know that you've been on a path where other people have made choices for you. Now it's time for you to step up to the plate and get in the driver's seat. Am I right? So let's do this. Let's take ownership of this process. I know that saying that, you know, it's really easy to feel like a victim. I felt like that a little bit, like, oh my gosh, like, how did I get here? Why didn't I stick up for myself? Why was I doing just what everyone else wanted me to do and not doing what I needed to do for myself, right? It's really easy to feel like that, but that doesn't serve us. It just keeps us where we're at. So we want to let go of that victim feeling. And I want you to think about bringing forgiveness to your thoughts and to your conversations about these historic choices, okay? And the other thing that I want you to do, this is really important. You know, before when I said my mom kind of made the choice for me to stay in school, but I don't blame her. And the reason why is because I know that she made that decision with my best interests at heart. She didn't necessarily think like, she was doing anything bad. And, you know, all in all, like, it wasn't the worst path that she led me down, right? I wasn't like destitute on the street or anything like that, but it just wasn't right for me. And so, you know, I thank her with all my heart for having my best interests at heart, for leading me down a path that she thought would bring me happiness and comfort and security and success. I thank her for that. But now it's time for me to make the choices for myself. And so I want you to do that same thing. All right. It can be hard. You don't necessarily need to go out and thank those people like in person. You know, maybe you can just meditate on it or journal on it, send them an email. You know, you don't necessarily have to let them know, but you will feel a weight has lifted when you stop blaming and start thanking. Okay. The next thing that I want you to do is really acknowledge, you know, what are those choices that led you here? But don't let those choices hold you back. Recognize that those choices no longer define you and the person that you are. It's a pretty liberating and a pretty exciting thing, I think, to think about. And then lastly, acknowledge that you always have a choice. It may not be an easy choice. It may not be a choice that you want to make or a choice that you're comfortable making, but you always have a choice no matter what. So remember that, you can choose to stay in a crappy job, or you can choose to change your mindset around that job. You can choose to leave that job. You can choose to negotiate new terms at work. Whatever those things are, you fully have that choice every single day. So own that, take ownership of that, and be proud of that, okay? So the next thing, which is so super important, and this took me a really, really long time to learn and to figure out, is that we really need to tap into what I call our inner guide. And this is really our intuition. It's the thing that right now is telling you like, oh, this job that I go to every day just makes me so miserable. Like I need to do something else. This doesn't feel right. That voice is your intuition. And often, for whatever reason, we can hear it when it's telling us things aren't right, but we can't always hear it when it's telling us what we should be doing instead. I don't know exactly why that is, but as women, I think that our sense of intuition can be really strong, but we've been taught for a really long time to not listen to that voice, right? We've been taught to just do what we're told, to be a good girl, to follow the steps that are laid out before us, to play by the rules. Women, not to make this a sexist conversation, but women are told that way more often than men are, right? And so we lose sight of that voice within us that's telling us what's right and what's wrong for us. And so we want to think about tapping back into that voice and being able to use that voice to guide you. That is a really important relationship, and it's one that takes time and energy to strengthen, but it's so important to figure out what your next steps really should be. So that is kind of the next thing to think about doing. And then, we come to a point, I kind of had mentioned this just a second ago, where you come to this point where you say, well, should I leave the job that I'm in now? Or, will leaving make me happy, or will staying make me happy if I just change things around a little bit? And that can be a really difficult question for people to answer, right? But it's really important to do that. And for me, what I realized in my journey was that when I took a step back, I realized that I had these core, what I call core values, that I bring to pretty much everything I do in my life. And my core values, to give you a little bit of context, mine are freedom, choice, ease, creation, service, and joy. And I try to bring those core values to really everything that I do. But when I took a step back and really looked, I realized that my work was not aligned with my core values in any way, shape, or form. That was why when I was in that engineering consulting job, I felt totally miserable, was because I was out of alignment. And by the time I realized that this was something to pay attention to and something that I could use to my advantage, I was in a completely different role. I was actually working for the city of Philadelphia, and I was basically, like, I had to clock in with a time card. So I had to go in at 8 a.m. and work for 8 hours and take a half-hour lunch and clock in and clock out. And it never felt right to me, but I wasn't sure why until I started exploring these core values, right? So for example, one of my values, as I mentioned, is freedom. And clocking in and out at a certain time and having a half-hour lunch was just like, it just felt like totally constrictive to me. Some people need that structure. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like killing me. And I also was not really doing anything where I felt like I was being creative or creating or really even supporting in a lot of ways. It was a weird role. And But on the flip side, what I did with those core values was that I decided, let me take these values and let me figure out, what does it mean for me to have freedom in a job? What does it mean for me to be creative in a job? What does it mean for me to be of service in a job? And so I wrote all these things out, right? So for me, I said, freedom means being able to control my own schedule. It means that I don't have to clock in and out. It means that, if I want to go to a yoga class in the morning, like I can do that and I'll make up my time or make up my work somewhere else. It meant for me that creation and service kind of went hand in hand, that I wanted to be able to support other people with processes and tools and things like that I had created to make their lives easier. So I went through and I identified for all of my core values, what would that look like? And kind of in broad strokes, like not specific, like I want to be writing like this kind of report every single day. I was like, I want to be creating a tool that supports other people, right? That's very generic, but at the same time, it really can help you identify what it is you should be doing. So once I had all of those kind of value statements written out, I used those to reverse engineer, if you will, a job description for myself that fit what I wanted. And then I got to work looking for that job. So I, scoured job postings. I talked to people that I knew in various industries. I reached out to mentors and said, like, this is what I'm looking to do. Like, what do you think I can do with this? Like, or, what do you think, what kind of jobs should I be looking at that can provide this for me? And honestly, once I made that decision that I wanted to work with within my values and in alignment with my values, I literally found a job that met all of my requirements within probably 2 or 3 months. I don't know the exact time frame, but it was really quickly. And that job was a work from home job where I was able to literally like manage my own hours. They were like, as long as you get your work done, we don't care when you're working. Like, let us know if you can't be reached or if you need to be reached on your cell phone at a certain time of day. But it was total freedom for me, which felt awesome. And I was in that support role where I was creating tools for people to use to make their lives better. I was automating processes and I was taking legwork out of manual processes that people were doing. So I was being of service to others, and it felt good. It was exciting. It was joyful for me because I was learning and growing. And that's something that I really enjoy doing. And I love having in a job. So that in a nutshell is how I went from having a crappy 40-hour-a-week desk job to really living life by design and having this role that I feel was created for me. It was that I defined that for myself. I didn't let anyone else define it. And then I went out and found it. All right. The steps are simple, but it can be difficult to implement. So I'm not going to, say to you like, do this today and tomorrow you'll have a new job, but it is totally possible to do this stuff because I've done it. So I want to just remind you guys of that. So let's talk about, what are the first steps that you need to take if you are in a bad situation. So I talked a little bit about letting go of the promises or the choices that other people have made for us. And so one of the things that I love recommending to people to do to help let go of some of that stuff, because some of it is really deeply ingrained in us and we hold on to it very dearly, even if we don't realize we are, is to do some daily affirmations. And I have 3 for you guys that I am going to share. And if you have a pen and paper, you can write them down now. Otherwise, I'm going to email them out after the webinar. So don't worry, you will have them, but I'm going to read them to you now and you can decide which, if you like all of them, if you like none of them and you want to write your own, or if you just like one or not the others. The first is, I am willing to be reminded of who I really am. That one's super powerful and I like that one a lot. The next is, I want to decide because I want to be at peace. And the last is the change I am really looking for is right here with me. And if you're not familiar with using affirmations, so what I recommend doing is, having these maybe written out by your bed. When you get up in the morning, you can read over them really quickly, sticking them on a Post-it note, maybe putting it on your computer, putting it in your car, making it the background on your phone, bringing awareness to these affirmations, and so that you can read them and embody them throughout the day. I think it helps to bring awareness to the things that we are trying to let go of and the things that we're trying to move beyond from. The next thing, so, as I mentioned, the steps are simple, but the process can be challenging. So I definitely encourage you to get some support. When I was going through this process, as I mentioned earlier, I had support. I was working with a coach. I had some professional mentors, and that really made a world of difference for me. I think that if I hadn't had that guidance, I would probably still be on this soul searching journey, whereas now I've kind of found where I am. And so I want to invite you guys all. I'm doing this new call. It's a 90-minute career clarity call. I'm only offering it right now to people who are involved in this webinar series. So just for you, I'm going to send out the details in email after this webinar. But we're really going to get down to the core of a lot of the things that we've talked about. So the first thing that we'll do on this call is identify, what are the choices that have been made that weren't your choice that led you to where you are? We'll peel back that onion and identify, what some of those beliefs are and what some of those things are that have led you to where you are and maybe are holding you where you are. Right? That'll be the first step. The second step, I talked about how important it is to listen to that inner guide and to tap into that inner guide. And bringing that voice out can be really difficult, but I have some really great tools that I use with clients to tap into that inner voice really quickly and to get you really feeling in tune with yourself and tapped into that intuition. So that's the second step. And then the third is that we will outline step by step, together, what are your specific steps that you need to take? Is it a matter of, identifying your core values and writing out those statements and reverse engineering your job description? Is it a matter of renegotiating your terms at work? And, how will that look? Whatever those steps might be for you, we will come up with a very clear action plan of the specific steps that you need to take. So we'll cover that all in 90 minutes. It is a lot, but it's definitely doable, and this call will definitely get you started on the path to a new career and a life by design. And lastly, I want to make sure to invite you to part 2 of this webinar series. So it's going to be next Thursday, same time, same place, same teal wall. I'm going to be sharing the top 5 things that I learned when I jumped off the corporate ladder. And I can guarantee you it's not going to be what you think. This call is not going to be about bashing corporate America or telling you that the grass is greener as an entrepreneur or anything like that. But there are some really valuable lessons that I learned as I jumped from position to position. And I want to share those with you. And I think that they'll be really valuable for you as you start to decide, where you want to go and what you want to do. So that is it. That's all I have for you guys. We're coming up on just a half an hour, which I think is probably perfect timing. So if you're calling in or listening in on your lunch break, you can grab some lunch and enjoy. Definitely, I will be sending out some details via email, as I said earlier. But if you have questions or comments, feel free to email me, stephanie@stephaniecookWellness.com. And I'm so grateful to have spent this half hour with you guys. It's been really fun. I'm really excited, and I can't wait for next week. It's going to be awesome. So have a great Thursday. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next week. Okay? Love ya. Bye.